few weeks ago, I mentioned that I thought the Rocky Desert was going to be the best starting spot in the game for Satisfactory 1.0, and in terms of the starting locations, I still believe that to be the case, and we will be talking about it shortly. But what if I was to say that there was somewhere much better that I've only just discovered and is probably the perfect starting location, except for one, maybe two small problems. So today let's review all these starting locations. And do remember, these are all part of one big map, so you don't need to worry if you don't start in the perfect location or you want to move. You can do without having to start over a fresh new save, though you can do if you want. Now, whilst we're here, we should probably start with the Rocky Desert. Now, the big pro to this is there is a lot of space to play around with. There's also a lot of pure resources, whether that's iron or limestone. You can even find a little bit of copper here as well to get you started. And ironically, there is, well, tons of water in this biome thanks to the coast to the side and the lake and river estuary all the way over there. So for early game power, this is actually pretty good because of the water, and not to mention the coal patches both in the northwest corner, which has 2 impure and 2 normal coal nodes, but a few more located in the estuary as well. This makes it perfect for power, but also moving on to steel. And on top of that, literally, there are also the crater lakes on top of the mountain here, which has plenty more coal and also sand ore and geysers for early to mid-game power. On top of that, there are also multiple more geysers throughout the biome. And better yet, this biome is sandwiched between the Gold Coast in the south, just over at that arch, and also the Spire Coast to the east, both of which are the best spots for oil in the game. So going into the middle or mid-game, this is also perfect because you can easily branch out. And on top of that, it's pretty chill with very few alpha enemies anywhere nearby. It's just the pesky fluffy tail hogs and a few bees, really. And the odd spitter. That being said, there are some downsides. The colour palette isn't particularly vibrant. We've got blues and browns and yellows and greys, but also all the quartz and I believe the sand ore available in the Rocky Desert is all located in this rather large cave, which for those who don't like spiders probably wouldn't like this either. Got to say, I do like the redesign though of the cave. Pretty nice. Now, if you are looking for the perfect spot in this biome, I'd probably have to recommend this plateau here. There's not a huge amount of space, but you can always expand outwards, but there is a lot of nodes available. I do believe it's 4 pure iron nodes and 2 pure limestone nodes, not to mention a impure copper, but a load of coal nearby for early game power or steel. And if you want to expand outwards, you have a metric ton of resources here, from copper to iron and also limestone, with plenty of space for expansion, whether that's logistic lines or production. So definitely consider this area here. Moving on, we have the Grassy Fields. Now, I have to say, Grassy Fields, in terms of its looks, is one of my favorite biomes, and it also has a ton of resource nodes available. On top of that, it does have sand nearby, most notably the one that's down in the little cave beneath this arch. And a big plus for new players is there are no alphas, or at least very few alphas I should say, in the Grassy Fields, making it a pretty safe one to get started in. Unfortunately, the pros kind of stop there because there's very little water available for your coal power plants. You have this little pond here, and there is another one all the way over there somewhere. It's probably that dried up little patch of ground. However, the other side of this forest, there is quite a lot of coal and a nice little lake that you can use should you wish, where I featured my old power plant in the last series. The other issue is that though there are lots of nodes, they're all either impure or normal nodes. Now that doesn't sound too bad, it actually works quite well in the early game in terms of ratios. It keeps it nice and simple for you because you either have 30 or 60 resources, but it does mean that you have to use extra power for miners unless you're using portable ones. On top of that, the coal that is here is pretty far from the water, so you either have to conveyor it or bus it over to where the water is, or take the water to here for your power plants. And if that wasn't bad enough, you've got a little bit of sulfur over here, which is pretty far away, and then you've got your quartz, which is even further away, somewhere over there. Yeah. Which doesn't make it that easy, really. And the last thing to really bear in mind about this biome is that there is no oil nearby. In fact, I think the nearest oil, if I remember rightly, is over in the Gold Coast, which is pretty far away, leaving your options pretty dry. However, in terms of the best starting location, I would probably have to say that it would be down in this cliffside here, where you have mainly normal nodes. You've got copper, iron and limestone easily available, with the SAM ore just across from there. There's also the Caterium and the coal nearby, which is a nice little plus. But other than that, you may want to consider the little center spot over there where I've started my most recent Let's Play. I'm excited to see how that turns out. But don't worry, if this isn't right for you, we've got a few more starting locations to go over. The next of which is the Dune Desert. The Dune Desert, the biome of plenty. Here, the biggest pro is that not only is there a lot of space, there is a huge amount of pure ore node deposits. You have pretty much everything en masse, though some of the resources are slightly further away. And with all of these nodes, it really does favor itself to end game factories and larger factories, but it's still perfect really for starter factories as well, because you have a ton of foliage despite being a dune desert, both over at the waterfalls, but also the little forest here, and also over at the, you can't really see it from here, but the oasis over here as well. And obviously with the waterfalls, the lake and the oasis, it means there's a ton of water as well. Ironically, there's more in the Dune Desert than the Grassy Fields. Let that sink in for a moment. On top of that, we have plenty of coal with this patch here, the 3 patches here, these, and I totally forgot about these ones as well, not to mention the final load hidden through here. I mean, this has a lot of coal available. Another thing to bear in mind with this is that next to here, we do have the Spire Coast, which again is perfect for oil, meaning you can easily move to your mid-game over there. Not that you'll need to, because there's pretty much everything here, including SAM, nitrogen, sulfur, geysers, and there is uranium. I believe it's actually, yeah, there. I knew it was somewhere hiding behind a tree. So yeah, if you didn't want to leave anywhere, this really is a fantastic biome. Oh yeah, back to oil. There is kind of oil here as well, just over here in the little valley that connects the Dune Desert to everything else. It's not a lot though, but it's enough to get you started. The only real downside I can think of to this is that it's a large biome with lots of different levels of terrain, which can be a little bit of a pain to get from one location to another. And it goes without saying that this area has quite a lot of alphas guarding around the borders, making it a little bit more difficult for new players to get out. But apart from that, it's pretty solid, to be honest. If I was going to pick one particular spot to be building my starter factory here, it would probably be around this area. And the reason for it is we have the water, the foliage all nearby. Also, we have a good amount of copper and limestone, even though these are, I think, impure. They might be normal ones. But also, just north, you have a load of copper, I think 2 pure iron nodes, more copper and limestone. So there's a lot in this area here. Failing that, you could go over there, but it's a little bit more sparse in terms of coal. You'll have to travel up to the top or up to where we are now in order to get it. But yeah, not bad. We then have the northern forest. In this biome, we have a fair amount of pure nodes, and they all are clustered very close together, which makes it great for having small factories. The problem is that there is so much terrain and so many different layers and levels of terrain that it does make it quite difficult to set up a nice building-like factory without tearing down all of the foliage, which you'll probably be using for power anyway, but it does make it much more difficult to build for a lot of players. So I tend to stay away from this because of that. There are also a good amount of geysers available here for mid or early mid power should you wish. But in terms of coal power, there aren't that many options. You have this little coal oasis in the east of the biome, or you can grab the coal from the rocky desert estuary here. But those are your only real options for coal, I'm afraid to say. The other thing, due to the cluster of resources that this area has, there are only really two good positions to go for. You have the original perfect starter point, which is this one here. This has seen quite a big nerf overall because they have removed the quartz from over that side of the cliff and moved them all the way down there. But also they've removed some of the caterium and also the sulfur as well, which means that this isn't as good as it was, but it still has a lot of pure nodes, which makes it pretty good getting started. The other option is by this archway here. It's surrounded by iron, copper, and limestone, and there's a lot of nodes to go around, and they're all pretty much pure if I remember rightly. So this could be a good option for you as well. But by far my favorite starting point so far, finally we have this location in the Coin Tree Forest. It's not a start location, so you will have to run here, which is going to be quite a long journey. Your nearest stop will be the Grassy Fields start location, which is here. So you'd have to run through the blue forest to get here and arrive at this location here. And the reason why I like this so much all of a sudden is because there is an abundance of iron nodes. We also have, bear with me, a impure copper node, but there's caterium, you've got limestone, and then we have the blue crater. With the blue crater so close, it really is a perfect position because you have lots of space. There's SAM ore nearby, you've got sulfur, a ton of geysers, and over here you can even see we've got the quartz pretty nearby as well. Plenty of space. Not to forget, there's also 4 coal nodes. These are normal ones, but they're right next to the water, which means you've got easy early game power. Then you have, I think it's 6 oil nodes, varying in purity, most of which I believe are pure. So that's perfect for scaling to fuel, turbo fuel, plastic, rubber. I mean, really, this has it all. Oh, and more geysers. Goodness me. There is a slight issue. Excluding the jog from the Grassy Fields, we don't have that much copper. There is, I believe, a normal copper node and an impure copper node pretty nearby to the starting point over there that I've referenced. The only pure copper node is this one down here, which is a little bit of a trek to get to. On top of that, there are only 2 normal nodes of limestone, which brings me to the kicker. There are a ton of alphas here. So if you're playing on retaliation or passive mode, this could be good for you. Or if you're a seasoned pro and know how to deal with the enemy, great, go for it. I highly recommend going for it. However, I very much doubt it would be good for new players. I mean, there's tons of them. Regardless of whether you use this as a starting spot though, I highly recommend expanding to it for the early game power, as this makes coal going on through to turbo fuel a walk in the park, and the variety of nodes here also make it perfect for any build, so do make sure to check it out. But guys, until next time, special thanks does go to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon, most notably our Lunar Eclipse patrons, Firefless, The Calamity, Ben and Star, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is the Souchron Husky. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.